I sometimes look at videos of myself from years ago and I cringe because I'm like, it's not, what I'm saying might be factually right.
Yeah.
But the way I'm saying it, I was once...
it's like looking at old hairstyles. It's the same thing. It's like looking at old fashion sense, old hairstyles, old advice.
I thought that looked good.
Yeah. I thought that, yeah.
I was in Beverly Hills when I first got to LA. I was about 25 and I was making a video in front of the Beverly Hills sign. I was like, I'm going to get the Beverly Hills sign in the background. And it was a video about getting over heartbreak.
Right.
And I think it was like the 3 tips for getting over heartbreak, right? Which, by the way, as soon as you say 3 tips for getting over heartbreak, you already don't understand. Because anyone who's deep in heartbreak is not coming to you going, what are your tips?
Yeah.
They're going, save me from this existential
crisis,
doom
Yeah.
I am in, where life doesn't feel worth living right now.
Yeah.
And I was making this video, and at the end of the video, a guy came over. It's like a 3-4 minute video, because of course you can sum up how to get over deep loss in 3 minutes. He came over and he said to me, "You've never been heartbroken, have you?"
Someone who's just watching, just a
He'd listened to the whole, I didn't know he was listening, but he was like in earshot the whole time. And he was like, "You've never been heartbroken, have you?" Now, 25-year-old know-it-all me, I was like, in my head, because out loud, I went, "No, I have." And I have. And I like sort of shuffled on. In my head, I went, "Who do you think you are?" Of course, I've like, what does this guy know? Like, oh, you know so much more than me or whatever. He was right. I had never been truly, I'd had things that like hurt me.
Yeah, sure.
I'd never been like crushed.
Yeah.
And having had that experience in my life now, the video I make is very different. How I talk about that is extremely different.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because I am aware that these things we're talking about here, it's very easy from a distance
100%.
to say to people, this person hasn't changed in a long time. What makes you think they're going to change now? And why are you still there?
Yeah.
And the why you're still there is because this stuff is so hard. Change is so hard. Leaving a situation,
So hard.
it's changing anything is hard. Like, this is one of the things that I sort of, one of my gripes, I suppose, sometimes with some of the self-development rhetoric is that it makes things sound so much easier than they are. And it sort of, it trivializes what are really difficult things. Most people, if they could just turn off their depression or their anxiety, if there was just a switch where they could go, they would do it.
Yeah.
And it's a terrible thing to feel. So the fact that they are feeling it must mean it's very difficult for them to not feel that.
Yeah.
And the same is true of a relationship. If someone has stayed in an unhappy situation for a long time, that must mean it is incredibly difficult for them internally to make peace with the idea of leaving. And what's happening, of course, is in this moment where it's evident to all of their friends and family that they should leave and that they should never look back, their abandonment issue that's been around their whole life is screaming at them.
Yeah.
Screaming, using any tactic it can to get them to stay. And when they were in the relationship, the tactic it used maybe was to go into people pleaser mode, and even though this person's not treating me right, I'm going to do anything I can to make them happy, make every compromise, make every sacrifice, bend over backwards, subjugate my own needs to try and serve you, all in order so that I can keep you.
Yeah.
And then at a point where you get so unhappy and you say, oh my God, this person's terrible. I've had to lose myself in this relationship to make them happy. I'm going to leave. Just at the point of leaving, just as your friends are like, thank the Lord, they did it.
Yeah.
They left. You go home that night and that abandonment demon realizes a different tactic has to be played. So it says, maybe they weren't so bad. Maybe like we're asking for too much. Maybe like, you know, they did have really great qualities, didn't they? I mean, they were loyal and they're a lovely person a lot of the time, and they're this and they're that, and that voice starts using a different tactic with you. Because the only thing that voice wants is don't be abandoned.
Yeah.
And it'll do anything in its power to reach that goal. It will ruin your life to achieve that goal, because it only has one goal. And the goal is not make you happy. The goal is make sure you're not abandoned.
Yeah.
And so this stuff is so difficult, and it's why people in those moments, if anyone is listening to this, and if you're listening to this and you're in an unhappy situation, I get it. I get how hard it is. And taking the time to really say, one of the things that can help is to say, this demon would come out with another person too. So it's not really about this person. To that extent, at least, I can depersonalize this and go, it's not really about losing this person. It's just about losing a person.
Yeah.
And I can carry this demon with me to the next one and the next one and the next one. So, but I think people should be compassionate to themselves, but if they're struggling to end something difficult, but extend that compassion to your future self.
Yeah.
Because truly extending your compassion to your future self is doing something that gives him or her a shot at a happy and a peaceful life. And if you know that all the evidence has told you it does not reside here, then compassion towards your future self is leaving, even if for your present self it's deeply painful.
That's so powerful, man. That's amazing. I'm so glad that you brought it to that, and your reference to just how people could switch it off. That I remember when I read that statistic the first time, that we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day, but 80% of them are repeated. And that was the one that really hit me. And I was like, yeah, that's what's happening. Like, if someone's saying that to themselves, what you just said about abandonment, the idea of if someone keeps repeating to themselves without even knowing, subconsciously, don't be abandoned, don't be abandoned, don't be abandoned, don't be abandoned. And that's just repeating over and over again. When you hear the advice of like, oh yeah, you should be able to leave or walk away. Of course it's hard, because that's one thought amongst 60,000 thoughts or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so it's a complete rewiring that needs to take place. And it's not just about cutting the wire, right? Like we're just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to cut that thought out. And it doesn't work like that. It's completely shifting it around. And so I love what you just said, that, you know, I'm so glad that you took this conversation there, because without that, actually, it's not even possible to rewire, because you're just trying to cut a wire that can't be cut. It's not possible to cut it.
And even if you cut it in the form of ending this relationship, the issue's still there, and you'll latch on to the first person you find on the way out.
Exactly.